of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to the members and parliamentary officials in attendance. We have received apologies from Honourable Mackenzie and would like to welcome Honourable Botha, who is standing in for him. And we have also received an apology from Honourable Pleho. Before I get into the full introductions, a quick reminder of the rules of engagement for virtual meetings. We ask that everyone's microphone be turned off. Any points of order should be please flagged in the chat box or by raising your hand. We ask those making contributions to please use their cameras and microphones, and once their contributions have concluded, to please turn those off. And as usual, the maintenance of order comes from the directives for sittings of the House and meetings of committees by electronic means, which was ATC'd on Friday, the 17th of April, 2021. My name is Mireille Wenger, and I'm the chairperson of the Standing Committee. Could I just ask the members to introduce themselves quickly?
Good morning, Chairperson and Speaker and the Deputy Speaker and officials, Regan Allen.
Good morning, Chair. Lorraine Botha, as you indicated, standing in for Ricardo Mackenzie.
Good morning, Chair and the Speaker, including the team. My name is Pat Lecker. Thank you.
Good morning, Honourable Lecker. All right, a very warm welcome to the Speaker and Deputy Speaker and the Secretary, as well as the team from the WCPP. We're very happy to have you here with us this morning. I don't know if you'd like to introduce your teams quickly, please.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson, the honourable members. I'm here with the Deputy Speaker, the Secretary, the SMT, and of course the Office of the Speaker. I would like the Deputy Speaker and everyone in the meeting to introduce themselves, and then I will do my opening remarks afterwards, if I may, Madam Chairperson.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Speaker. Good morning to the administration and to the members. I'm Beverly Schaefer, the Deputy Speaker.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honourable members and colleagues. I'm Romeo Adams and I'm the Secretary to the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning, Chairperson, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, honourable members and colleagues. I'm Sunil Forshire, Public Engagement.
Good morning, Chair, Speaker and Deputy Speaker and the honourable members and the colleagues. My name is Lubabalo Stemele. I'm the Director of Parliamentary Support Services. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, honourable members. Nicole Peterson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good morning, Chair, Deputy Speaker and Speaker, Secretary. It's Margot Goldstein. I'm the Director for Institutional Strategy and Organisational Development.
Right, if that's everybody, a very good morning to you all, what's left of the morning. I'll now hand over to the Speaker for some brief high-level introductory remarks, and thereafter we'll go into the analysis of the budget itself. Over to you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the honourable members. I'd like to appreciate this opportunity, myself and the Deputy Speaker and the team, led by the Secretary in the administration. We appreciate this opportunity to present the WCPP's adjustment budget for 2021-2022 financial year. Madam Chairperson, our main budget of 165 million rands, 855,000 rands, was supplemented with rollovers of 3.510 and the revenue retention of 342,000 rands from the previous financial year, which left the WCPP with an adjusted appropriation of 169 million rands, 711,000 rands. So the statutory appropriation, Madam Chairperson, received no additional funding, and remained at 47,997,000 rands. We are seeing here the WCPP having not received any additional funding during the adjustment estimate, which is a very serious challenge for us. But with the surplus funds from the previous years, Madam Chair and the honourable members, as well as the internal shifts which brought about by the internal reprioritization, were reallocated during this adjustment estimate process. And that is just being able to be prudent in our approach and also being smart in how we spend the list that we have. So the rollover, which included the revenue retention of the 2020-21 financial year, Madam Chair, was mainly allocated to Program 1, and that is Governance, Leadership and Administration, which is a value of 1.832 million rands to specifically in this particular area of governance, leadership and administration. So that was what we could afford to allocate in the funds that we have as part of the rollover, as I indicated. But also, Program Chair, Madam Chair, you can see that the Program 3, Public Engagement, we've got just over 2 million rands in this particular program. Again, it's our own internal arrangements, no additional funds. A breakdown of the rollover, the shifts environments per program is as follows. Program 1 is governance, which is governance, leadership and administration. It's 1.4, which was allocated to cover the costs in respect of the committed projects which were not yet completed in the financial year 2021. So we wanted to ensure that we finish the work that we've started. These main projects, Madam Chair, honourable members, is the payment of Association of Public Accounts Committees. As you know that we affiliate in the APEC, we have to pay annual fees, and that is in respect of 2019-20, as well as the 2020-2021 financial year to the sum of 276,000 rands. Going further, Chairperson, honourable members, the payment of the costs related to the work study exercise completed in the Office of the Speaker, which is a program that we started earlier on this year, and that was the 252,000 rands to ensure that the office is well structured. As you will be well aware, Madam Chair and the honourable members, that we've got a handbook which we piloted in the sector in this particular provincial parliament in the Western Cape, where it was never done before in South Africa, and it is now a beacon of hope and a leader in the sector to help other legislatures, of course, to use this particular model to ensure that there's separation of powers insofar as the state and the statutes. And that is a very good practice which we have set, and it cost us an opportunity. It also presented an opportunity to reconfigure the office and see that the office is suited for the kind of work that it is designed to do in the 6th Parliament and beyond. So that was the amount. The various training interventions, which amounted to 406,000 rands. As you know, Madam Chair, honourable members, there's a number of programs that we do from time to time to train the members, to help the lifelong learning, and also to help the staff members to develop and continue to learn new skills in doing their job. In addition to the above, the surplus funds from the underspending as a result of the non-filling of fully funded vacant positions, which has been primarily because of COVID-19, and of course, some of the position takes time to fill because of the challenges of finding the suitable candidates on time and the processes which have to be in line with our HR policies and implemented in full as per the DPSA prescripts. So the less demand for interpreting services also contributed, as well as, you know, Madam Chair, we started off, we were working mainly virtually. If you recall, as the chair of the COVID-19 ad hoc committee, most of the work was done virtually until later we were able to introduce the interpretation services later on in the last year. And also the less catering pressure, because when you have a meeting like now, Madam Chair, honorable members, I'm not sure whether you had coffee online here, and we didn't pay for it. It was your coffee. Also, we didn't pay for your croissants or for your muffin. You paid for your own at home, and that is what has led to some of these savings, which we appreciate due to the number of interventions that we've been able to do. We save money. Also, Chair, including the parliamentary sittings, we didn't have initially when we started off in the new year, in the previous year, 2021, we started off as well as 2021, 22. What we've been doing, we've been mainly working on a hybrid and a virtual approach, but that is because we wanted to function, but we saved money for not having complete physical sessions. And this is 308,000 rands to supplement the travel budget to cover higher costs, higher than anticipated travel expenditure in the year that we're dealing with. So provision was also made, Madam Chair, for the procurement of additional software, which we required and which were not provided for in the original budget. These requirements include the migration of data to Office 365 data, the SharePoint intranet, and knowledge management related tools to the tune of 365,000 rands. A phased implementation of cybersecurity as per the implementation plan contained in the cybersecurity strategy, which was approved on the 30th of September 2021. And this is an amount of 669,000 rands, Madam Chair. Implementation of the recommendations which emanated from the work study exercise in the office of the Speaker cost us an amount of 353,000 rands. The procurement of additional camera equipment and mobile sound system for external or external hybrid events, as well as additional laptops requirements to the tune of 1.4 million rands. In terms of Program 2, Madam Chair, Parliamentary Services, additional funding to the amount of 100,000 rands was shifted from Program 1, Governance, Leadership and Administration, to supplement the procurement of an X-ray machine to be used for scanning metal, baggage, which is your handbags and so forth and so forth. And that is in order to improve physical security at the Queen Victoria entrance here in the building, in the legislature, in order to ensure that there's security in the building. We don't want people to come in here without having been checked properly, because it exposes the honourable members and staff and the other tenants in the building. So in this case, an amount of 570,000 rands, Madam Chairperson, honourable members, was allocated, as well as 317,000 rands to cover all additional all costs related to additional closed circuit television cameras. All of these are high-tech systems within the building. An additional amount of 214,000 rand was also provided to cover the higher than anticipated costs allocated to government gazettes. The provision of an amount of 356,000 rand was also made in order to ensure that committees work and supported optimally due to the increase of committee activities, and that includes oversight and a number of other engagements, public participation, public hearings, and the list goes on. And of course, pending the easing of lockdown restrictions. Madam Chair, in terms of Program 3, program that deals with the public engagements, we allocated, as I indicated earlier, an amount of 2 million rands, which was a rollover from the previous financial year, in order to cover some of the committed projects which were not necessarily planned for the financial year 2020-21. They were not able to start at the time. So an amount, Chair, honorable members, of 234,000 rands was also planned to cover costs of graphic design services as well as social media advertising, which was not included in the original budget when we started the year. So those are things that we need in order to ensure that we function and we are able to communicate optimally with stakeholders in a way that is impactful. And finally, in terms of program 4, member support, provision was made for the appointment of 7 interns, one for each political party. I'm sure the honourable members are happy to hear this one, which will help augment the work that you do as political parties, either research, capacity, and other related services. And currently, currently we've looked at what can we do to help that space, and that is an amount of 82,000 rands per political party times 7, and that is 1.2 million rands, that's over 1.2 million rands, Madam Chair, honourable members, to cover all of the things that I've already indicated that is needed. So I also need to indicate, Madam Chair, that there's something that we've discovered here, that there are certain areas that the honourable members have been found wanting. In fact, when you look at how much we spent per second dwelling per member, we've realized that we needed to augment this, and we found an opportunity to reprioritize, but also in this current financial year, because we didn't have this earlier, we've increased the funds which were initially allocated. The administration will deal with that. And that is where we've allocated, I need to correct that, that is where we allocated the 1.2 million rands to ensure that we're able to support the members for the second dwelling allocation in the enabling allowance. So the interns themselves will be catered for, as I indicated, 82,000 rands per party. Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, I think at this stage, let me close and thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and thank the opportunity that the committee has given to us to come and present, and hope that this committee will be able to support all our intentions. And we always appreciate being able to come through here. And the reality is we want to be the best parliament with your support, not only in the region, but of course, across the world. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for that very broad overview of the budget and the details of the budget. You've answered most of my questions. Mr. Secretary, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we go to the page-by-page analysis of the budget?
Thank you, Chairperson, and again, thank you, Speaker and Deputy Speaker. No, sir, as Chairperson, I have nothing further to add to the introductory remarks.
Super, thanks very much. All right, members, I direct you to the Blue Book, the adjusted estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure 2021. We're looking at vote 2, Provincial Parliament, which can be found on page 21. Are there any questions on page 21? Any questions on page 22? Then let's, yes, is that a question on page 22?
First, it's on page 21, and then I'll move quickly to page 22, Chair, if you allow me.
Please ask questions on both.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, on the adjusted estimates for provincial expenditure 2021, table 2.2, I just want to know, at least as to how much of the funds that were earmarked now has been used thus far. If we can just get that kind of detail. I'd listened to the speaker, but can we get a total number of those? And then on page 22, Chair, just on 2.1 on compensation of employees, Just given that the bulk of underspent funds were related to unfilled vacancies, just an indication how much of those vacancies have not been filled thus far, and maybe which programs are affected and what are the plans to address that. Then on what will be the impact also of this, because I want to think that the staff is overworked, but just for the speaker to give me an indication. And if I'm right, Chair, on issues of being overworked, because when you're working virtually, sometimes you find yourself working right through or right up until 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And really, I just want to know, in terms of those positions, which of those were part of the functional enhancement? Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. I'll hand over to the Secretary and the Speaker.
The Secretary will deal with it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, on the first question of Honourable Lecker, related to what does the spend look like from the table that the Honourable Lecker had been referring to, the CFO and Mr. Jawadin would respond to that. The second question, as it relates to vacancies, Mr. Titus will attend to that, and Mr. Titus will also give an indication of the positions where all of the decisions have already been taken. Either the new employees have already assumed duty, or there's a commitment that the new employees will assume duty in January 2022. Thank you, Chairperson. I'm first going to give over to the CFO and Mr. Jawadin, and then Mr. Titus. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Jawadin.
Thank you, Chair. To you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I think I introduced myself earlier. My name is Dawud Johnny, Manager Finance. Thank you, Chair and POC. Just one Honourable Member Lekker's question regarding how much has been spent on the rollover that has been brought into the funds during the adjustments estimate. The majority of the rollover funds was relating to as the Speaker mentioned previously, funds that had been committed in the previous financial year for projects that were not finalised and that had been then shifted or now in the adjustments estimate into this financial year. More than 50% of that fund have already been spent due to the fact that they have been committed and would have been finalized in the first quarter of the financial year. However, the remainder of that is funds that are being monitored and are in the process of being finalized and is monitored in our monthly IYM meetings with managers, where we do specifically look at following up on those expenditure and how far those are. And they are all projected to be spent within this financial year, if not already been spent. But more than 50% of that funding rollover has already been spent in the first 2 quarters of this financial year. I think the second part was regarding the vacancy, but just to mention the one specific question on Honourable Member Lekker's question, that there was no earmarks fund specifically with regards to those vacancies. But I think Mr. Titus or Secretary mentioned regarding the vacancies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll hand over to Mr. Titus.
Thank you so much, Chair. Allow me to just go through the program as well as sub-program and the vacant positions, Chair. I'm going to start in the Office of the Secretary. So there's a Senior Officer Project Management position that has been established as a result of functional enhancement. That particular post, we are utilizing that one for one of our key enabling projects now on a contract basis. It's a project management position that we have advertised already for the Stage 300 project. So that is the position with regard to that one. In the Directorate Strategy and Institutional Oversight, there's a Senior Officer Strategy and Organizational Performance. The original candidate that the process has been concluded. The initial candidate that we've made an offer to received a counter offer from his current employer, and we've now subsequently made an offer to the second candidate. And so we are still awaiting response from that particular candidate, and the idea was that this person would start in January. That's a Senior Officer Strategy and Organizational Performance. In the same directorate, the Office Administrator process, we are still in the process of recruiting the office administrator. So the panels have convened already, and so they are at an advanced stage of finalizing that particular process. The legal services department, the legal advisor, the panel has met. There's been scheduled meetings as late as November, end of November. Shortlisting had been done, and so that process is in looking at setting up for interviews. And the shortlist must then be approved by the secretary first. So that's the legal advisor position. In human resources, which is also part of Program 1. The Senior Officer Employee Relations, that one has been filled. The new staff member started the 1st of December. In the Knowledge Management and Information Services space, the Senior Officer Digital Information and Knowledge Management, there we are awaiting a decision with regard to that particular position. The Information Services provision, we have submitted a letter of offer already in that regard. The ICT officer, we've got a vacant ICT officer in that space. The shortlisting has already happened, and we are waiting just the paperwork in that regard. I want to just pause slightly, with your indulgence, Chair, on the logistical services officer. What we have realized is that we have, in the logistics space, what we've realized is that we require additional positions, especially in the IT space. And we are then going to be repurposing the logistics officer position to be utilized within the IT space to deal with all of the kind of enhancements that we are talking about, and the application development area, which we've not previously through the functional enhancement identified as positions of focus and key positions. So that post was purposefully not filled so that we could repurpose that in the IT space. So that's the logistics officer position. We have approval for that to happen now. The manager plenary support, if I'm coming down to parliamentary support services, an offer has been accepted. The manager will start on the 5th of January. In the Sergeant at Arms, the admin clerk position that has been vacated due to a retirement resignation there, that position is on hold because we need to be looking at how we repurpose the positions within the organization. And so that one is not advertised at the moment. You would also remember that the plenary support space, that procedural officer NCOP liaison, was vacated now recently. That has been identified, well, has been advertised, and the closing date for that is the 6th of December. The in stakeholder management and communication services, the receptionist and switchboard operator position is one that is also currently not advertised and that we've placed on hold in lieu of other key positions in that same stakeholder management and communication service that we are busy considering. So that, Chair, is in broad strokes the recruitment processes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Secretary, something you'd like to add?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, maybe just in terms of the repurposing of positions, the functional enhancement was approved in 2019 for implementation on the 1st of April 2019. The world of work, and especially how we do our work in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, has changed during the COVID-19 processes, and that's why when positions become vacant, there's an assessment of whether the position is still required, firstly. Secondly, is it still required in its current form as it was when the individual had exited? And if not, the necessary amendments are then made to make sure that we cover the current and the future needs that that position has to accommodate. If we look at the Blue Book, Chairperson, it says that 5.8 million was shifted from compensation of employees. From the rundown that Mr. Titus had given in terms of the progress with the filling of vacancies, we must also remember we had filled 2 senior manager positions this year. We had also filled other senior officer positions this year. It is anticipated that when we get to the 1st of April 2022, the 3 positions that Mr. Titus had been referring to, maybe plus 1 more, would be the only positions that would be budgeted for and not yet filled because of the refinement processes that we are going to. So we then anticipate that if there are going to be any underspend or under savings, it would be because of resignations, because of promotions into other positions, but the amount would not be as high as 5.8 million as we see in the Blue Book today. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, for that explanation. Let's then move into the details of the adjustments to the estimates of provincial expenditure. Those are on pages 23 to 27. So if members have any questions on pages 23 to 27, if they would pose those now. Let's start with you, Honourable Lecker.
Thank you, Chair. I just before I move to page 23, just a recollection, maybe I missed this one. All the positions, or as far as the report that has been given, were all these positions part of the functional enhancement. But then allow me to move to page 23 under program 1. What are the details of these projects? And can we at least be provided with the update on each of these? And then again on sub-program 1.2.1, program management governance, which then the funding to cover higher than anticipated costs due to members' second dwelling residence. I note that the funds for the compensation of employees have been shifted to fund things such as higher than anticipated traveling costs and second dwelling. I would like to understand exactly as to how much of this is directly to amendments to the presiding officer's manual, and how did we incur higher than anticipated costs for traveling, accommodation, and which members were involved. And then under sub-program 1.2.2, again, funding to cover for higher than anticipated. The traveling funds for compensation under legal services have been shifted due to that. And can we be enlightening on why the Speaker's office needed more funds and how much of its budget for travel and accommodation has been spent to date? Thank you, Chair. I'll pause for 24 at another stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Chair. I've been covered mainly by Member Lacker's questions, but I just want to ask, in the same vein that you asked on Program 1, to also have an explanation for Program 3, the content of that types of projects that is incompleted. Thanks.
Thank you. Honourable Allen.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm covered. Also, thank you to the Speaker for his detailed introductory remarks. There's one item that caught my attention on page 25 in terms of the underspending due to less demand for interpreting services. I'm not sure if this will be entirely appropriate now, but is it possible to ascertain if the WCPP have done any investigation or consideration around interpreting services being in-house and not necessarily via contract?
Thank you. Then I have a question also on page 25, which is the funding to cover additional camera equipment and mobile sound system, as well as additional laptop requirements, which I think adds up to just under 1.5 million. Is it possible to get a breakdown of how much of that 1.5 million is for cameras, how much is for laptops and sound equipment and so on? And then my last question is on page 27. Under sub-program 3.2 stakeholder management and communication services, I see there is an amount of 187,000 for graphic design services and social media advertising. In our last meeting, it was said that the issue with social media advertising was a policy problem in that one couldn't get a quote beforehand. So I'd just like to understand if those bureaucratic obstacles have now been resolved in order for committees and the WCPP to advertise on social media, considering that there is a budget allocated. Right, I think that then concludes this round of questions, and I'll hand over to the Speaker and Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Secretary will deal with the questions and the team.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, Mr. Jawadin and the CFO is going to give first responses. With regards to interpreting services, Mr. Titus will attend to that. In terms of the program 3 questions, Ms. Fouchier will attend to the program 3 questions. In terms of the incomplete projects also, we'll take it from there, Chairperson, and then augment where necessary.
Please proceed, Mr. Jawadin.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. I'll touch on a couple of questions that relates to the expenditure, and particularly questions to Honourable Member Lecker. With regards to the second dwelling, I think Mr. Titus can provide a bit more detail specific on that, but provision was made for the additional funding required due to the fact that there were additional members who needed funding residing outside the policy provision regarding the kilometres. But I think Mr. Titus can provide a bit more detail with regards to that specific detail. However, provision was made for the projected additional expenditure that resulted from the fact that there were additional members now specifically who had to make provision for second dwelling outside the 50-kilometre radius. With regards to the travel costs, the additional funding there specifically is due to the fact that there was a change in flight and costing regarding the CPA Africa costing that took place now the past couple of months. So the fact that the costing or the flights were changed due to the new, if I can call it, travel restrictions on South Africa placed now last month. So we had to go up. The additional costing had to be incurred based on the fact that itineraries or the flights and had to be changed. So we made provision for the additional costing specifically due to that for the participants who partook in the CPA Africa travels. With regards to the legal services, that particular is a bit due to a case that's currently still in investigation by the South Office of the State Attorney, where we're still waiting a report, and that we have a costing specifically with regards to that due to the fact that we're waiting the outcome of that investigation report, and the funding had to be made provision specifically due to the projection by that section for the additional legal services due to that investigation. With regards to the content of the project that has been incomplete, we can provide that to the committee with regards to the progress on all the program that's still in progress. Instead of going through all the details specific with regards to that, we can get that detail. The interpreting service, I think the Secretary mentioned that they will, the Secretary or someone else will provide detail on that specifically. The camera, mobile, and the breakdown of that through your Chair with regards to what specifically that is for, or the breakdown of that. I can provide that detail, the specific breakdown with regards to that. There was a specific request for camera, a higher resolution camera specifically due to the fact that during, if you can call it, what's the word I'm looking for? We do need a professional photographic printer specifically to print high resolution images when we do publications, and we realize that the current equipment we do have does not provide for that, so we made provision for the procurement of that particular purposes. With regards to the additional software, like we mentioned, I think Secretary also mentioned, Speaker obviously mentioned previously that with regards to the migration of the 365 domain from WCPP to that, for that to be coming back, that domain from the Teams domain, sorry, to be moved on to the WCPP domain, and there's some software requirements that relates to additional software expenditure. CCTV cameras with regards to the additional procurement of the CCTV cameras as per we added internal SEPs report that required us to install CCTV cameras, and that's also a requirement we made provision for in this. The graphic design, that specifically is related to a mid-level graphic designer to finalize our, I think it's called a tolerance logo application to create the new artwork in a library, and I think it's called the taxonomy for artwork, archiving of work, and the revising applications and ensuring compliance, applying revisions and practicing the CI manual. But I think Sunil might have a bit more detail specifically with regards to that. I think that's most of my one. I'm not sure if I've missed anything, Chair, but that's most of the expenditure related questions.
Thank you. I'll hand over to Ms. Peterson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to supplement what Mr. Jawadine said, just on the social media, we've made a provision for budget there, and we are in the process of trying to procure and appoint an agency to assist the WCPP in social media advertising. Thanks.
Thank you. Then I think I'm handing over to Ms. Forshire. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Secretary. Thank you to the finance team. They always provide such comprehensive answers. It's great. It takes the load off. Just then a few things from my side. The vacancies that are reflected there in terms of Programme 3 is the Public Education and Outreach Officer in PEO. That position has been filled. Ms. Beth-Marie Klutter has taken up the position. And then, as Mr. Titus indicated, in terms of stakeholder management, that was the receptionist, switchboard operator, that we are looking to see how we can better utilize skills in that section. In terms of the camera and sound equipment, Honourable Chair, we've always in PEO had one set of portable audio-visual and camera equipment. In other words, one team could take the AV with them. The other team always had to hire it in. So now that we have two fully functional teams, so we have Beth Marie that will focus a lot on the Afrikaans areas, and we have Owana that can deal with Xhosa and English, so Afrikaans and English on the one side, Xhosa and English on the other side. We can send two fully functional teams into the field, and that would optimize our reach in the province and our impact greatly. So we thought that it is at this point now appropriate to get sound and AV equipment for each of the teams. Often when we go to small areas, they do not have the IT service providers there to provide us with these systems. Similarly, with increasingly we are using the material from our workshops for things like the legacy publication and the secretary's report. So we want to be able to take high quality pictures that we can use online and that the resolution is good enough for it to work properly, as well as in print media there. With regards to the photographic printer, one of the things that we have started to do is that whenever we receive a delegation or whenever we have a function, we would have a photograph taken, immediately printed, framed, and handed over to whoever the delegation is or whoever the group is that visited us as a keepsake. At the moment, we are printing it on our normal printers, which results in either very bad copies that deteriorate in a very short space of time, or the photograph paper gets stuck and the whole printer is jammed and it causes a whole hullabaloo. So it is for those kind of purposes that we are getting the one printer. It's only one printer. In terms of the graphic design, we have had communication from our members and most notably our leadership speaker and deputy speaker about how our corporate identity translates electronically. We know that we're trying to increase our social media footprint, and our corporate identity doesn't quite translate well onto the screen. Similarly, we have to do a lot of infographics things like that. And we do not have graphic design skills in-house. So we are getting a service provider to do a project. So we want them to integrate, for instance, our tolerance logo into all our corporate branding, to update so that we reflect better electronically. And then when that contract is over, when the service provider is done, we have those graphic design elements that we can use. So we don't have to do a full corporate identity review, which would cost the wrong side of $1 million and will take us a very long time. Nicolas indicated with social media, we realized in terms of the regulations of FAMPLA, the only way that we can do it is to appoint a service provider that will act as our media agency. We did go out on the electronic procurement system. We received 2 quotations, and we are currently busy liaising with those 2 service providers to just obtain clarity as to exactly what the quote entails. And we're hoping to make an appointment so that in the beginning of 2022, we can really start getting going with the social media advertising. I think I've covered everything, Secretary. If I haven't, then Chairperson, just please remind me.
Right, I think that covers all the questions. I'm just mindful of the time, unless we want to return at 6 o'clock this evening. I'm going to open then for a final round of questions on page 23 to 27. 23 to 27. Honourable Lecker, would you like to pose your final questions on those pages, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just to check, man, quickly, in terms of the study recommendations, I just want to check what are those details in the study, when was it conducted, by who, regarding the increased recruitment and relocation cost, what are the details that can be provided regarding this, but also why did we need to recruit people from other provinces? Does it mean we don't have adequate skills in the province, or what exactly is happening? Then, Chair, going to page 25 also, funding to cover the cameras that we've just heard about, that the 697,000 of funded vacancies has been shifted to buy those cameras. Why were these not budgeted for in the main budget, and what is the total number of cameras thus far? Now, regarding the 356 shifted towards increased committee activities, what exactly was this committee activity and what were the funds? And lastly, funding to cover the closed circuit television. What is the number of CCTVs that were procured? Where and when were these, will this be installed? Just to also, as a last question, Chair, around the questions, when are we going to see our questions being put on the website, the WCPP website? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Lecker. That then concludes the questions from page 23 to 27. I'll hand over to the administration. Please ask if you could keep your answers brief. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm going to go straight to Ms. Fouchier in terms of the cameras, Mr. Stimele in terms of the committee activities, and then Mr. Titus, the study recommendations and the recruitment cost, relocation, etc. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. There are 3 cameras with all the camera equipment that goes with it. So again, it would be for each of the PEO teams, and the third one, if we need to, similarly for use with SOPA, etc. But it is the cameras with all the equipment.
All right, next responses, please.
Sorry for that. Let me, Honourable Lecker, through you, Chair. The questions currently, we're still experiencing some technicalities in terms of fully loading them because of the security within the website itself. But the service provider is assisting that, and soon we'll be able to do those. Can you come again with the question on the committees and I just wanted committee activities?
Can you repeat your question, Honourable Lecker?
The question was basically as to, in terms of the expenditures for committees. I'm just looking for that now. Where was I? I think it's page 20.
Yeah, it's on page 26, sub-program 2.3.2, standing committees, provision made for increased committee activity pending the easing of lockdown restrictions. Is that it?
Yes, regarding the 356,000 shifted towards increased committee activity. What exactly were these committee activity, and what were these funds used for?
Thank you, Chair. Honourable members will remember that, the work of the committees, it's also more demand driven. We may be able to budget, let's say, for about 40 Section 76 bills, and in return we've got about 70 of those. So as time goes by, we tend to get more bills than what we have budgeted for, and then we need to attend to that. But also members would understand that, based on the austerity measures that have been applied, there's been a demand when the lockdowns levels were eased, that committees needed to conduct oversight, committees needed to meet more. That required more budget, and as things stand currently, we're still sitting with such a problem that we're trying to move around in terms of ensuring that we fulfill the needs of the committee, but again, we try to stick within the budget. So as things stand, it will be the issues of public hearings, it will be the issues of oversight visits, and on other time would be also committee meetings, because usually meetings over the previous financial year were mostly done virtually, and now they can be done hybrid, and some committees will meet in person. So we need also to cater for those. So those will be the activities, Chair, that will be looking at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to be practical because I understand what Honourable Leke says. There may have been confusion, but let me just help here with the experience of having been on the other side. Chair, the idea is that we know that there's pressure from committees. Either you need more money to do more committee activities, whether it's a public hearing or you want to travel to a place as a committee to do oversight. So we've realized that there will be more work on the ground needed by the committees instead of only the virtual platform. Hence, we realize we need to augment the funding in this particular area. That's the simple response to it. And then the other area which was raised earlier by the members on the increase of 1.2 million towards accommodation for members, which is the second dwelling. The reality is that initially when I came in as the speaker with the deputy speaker, the amount was 8,000 rands given to a member to cover the second dwelling, which you could claim for. So the immediate thing that we did, because we realized it was very small, that amount, and then I requested that we increase it. It was 8.5. But for the next, I signed on this last week to increase it to 10.5 a month. So that is the anticipation of more members, which we've seen that there's been an increase of members with the second dwelling because of the distance travel. So members wanted to be closer to their constituencies. So we don't want a situation where you want to take advantage of this opportunity because it exists, but then we can't because there is no funding. Even the members that are currently using the opportunity of the second dwelling in terms of the members guide, there is too much money that they pay compared to what they get, because property is costly, especially if you want members to live in an environment that is safe and secure and a bit of comfort in order to do their work and also in order to live. So that is basically, so we're just augmenting more than anything else, but we're using the existing funds that we have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Are you covered, Honourable Lecker? Can we move on?
Chairperson?
Yes, Chair. No, Chair, the CCTV cameras.
The last question on CCTVs, please.
Yes.
If that could be responded to.
Thank you, Chairperson. Ms. Bashir will again attend to the CCTV cameras, but Honourable Lecker had also asked about the relocation costs, Chairperson, that Mr. Titus will be responding to.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Adams. Just to respond directly with regard to relocation costs, the Honourable Lecker asked whether we don't have internal candidates within the province. The WCPP for a long time did not necessarily engage even at a national level when it comes to certain kind of key positions. What we have started doing is to advertise completely openly nationally in order to attract the best possible candidates for positions. What we've done in relation to the relocation policy, and here it is about fair HR practice, to establish when individuals are suitable for particular roles and have been deemed competent for appointment, that we actually allow the policy to accommodate all members of staff, especially in those key positions, because previously this was only open to the practice was only open to management. And what we're saying is there's got to be fair practice when it comes to the application thereof. So most of our appointments are in fact in any case happening within the province. The second question that Honourable Lecker also asked was about the work study, which was a study that was identified within the Office of the Speaker. What has happened there is that the Speaker had identified a need to strategically align the positions there, to look at whether the current positions can actually support the strategic intent of that office. We have appointed a service provider to do a full study with recommendations in that space, and we are now looking at the implementation of those recommendations that have come from that. We call that a refinement process. The Office of the Speaker was not part of the refinement process when we dealt with functional enhancement in the first round of application within the rest of the administration. So that explains the implementation of the work study. It's a scientific process, and it's an important one because that identifies where the strategic coherence, as well as the lack of duplication and the strategic alignment is looking at. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Titus. I'm now going to pause the meeting, and considering that we have advertised, just hold on, Honourable Lecker.
Okay.
Considering that we have advertised for this hour to the public, I'd like to at this point understand if there are any members of the public that would like to pose any questions or make comments to the department. If you are a member of the public and are joining us today, now is your opportunity to pose any questions or make any comments to the Western Cape Provincial Parliament as an institution. It appears that there are none. We unfortunately have run out of time, so Honourable Lecker, I'm going to ask if you can please hold your follow-up question as well as the response on the CCTV, which I think is still needs to be responded to. We will then reconvene at 17:45. I will ask the procedural officer to please send out the link, and then we will resume our deliberations on the budget adjustments, beginning with the outstanding response on the CCTVs, and then Honourable Lecker's follow-up question, and then we'll continue with page 28 in the Blue Book. Members, I'd also like to ask that once we have concluded the budget deliberations this evening, if we could please proceed to adopt the outstanding committee reports, which have been emailed to you this morning by our procedural officer, Mr. Dustin Davids. So with that, thank you very much for the engagement so far. I'm sorry we've run out of time, but unfortunately, as the committees are back-to-back today, we can't eat into other committees' times, and look forward to seeing you later this afternoon at 17:45. That's 5:45 p.m. And the link will be circulated to all. Thank you very much. The meeting is paused. We'll see you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.